afternoon, and thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Jolie Whitney. For this month's Bird Notes program, we're preparing for an annual event that has birders up past their bedtime. The Audubon Birdathon is coming up, and joining us to talk about what birders have to look forward to is conservation biologist Mark LaBarr. Mark works at the Audubon Center in Huntington, and he's our resident bird expert. Thank you so much for being with us, Mark.
Always great to be here, Jolie.
So as I mentioned, the Birdathon is coming up. Why don't you tell me what that involves?
So the Birdathon is one of our annual fundraisers, and we do it every year. It's a great team building experience for the staff. And what we do is we try to get as many species of birds in 24 hours. And people donate to Audubon as part of this process. So we reach out to individuals, talk about the Birdathon, and hopefully folks can donate. Folks can still donate if they go to Audubon, Vermont, Birdathon, Google it. There's still an opportunity because as of this taping, we haven't gone out yet. I'll report back as to what we get at our next, the next time we see each other. But today I wanted to kind of explore a little bit of what we got last year.
Yeah, this isn't your first rodeo. Let's jump into some of the easier birds that you see right out the gate.
Yeah, so what happens oftentimes is a group of us will stay overnight and pick up the nighttime birds, and then some of us more lazy birders might get up in the morning, and you walk out the door and one of the first things you hear is a song sparrow. Okay, so some of the easy birds, we get our first 60 or so species within the first 3 hours.
Wow.
And then we have to work really hard to get the rest. So song sparrow's an easy one. The phoebe's right there with the song sparrow. Phoebe, another easy bird, one of the flycatchers. These can be around the office, right at, my house. And then since we live out in the, where forest is prevalent and there's a lot of edge species, we often hear the chestnut-sided warbler pretty quick.
What do you mean by edge species?
So species, say you've got a field and then you've got some scrubby habitat and then you got the forest. And some of these species, like the chestnut-sided warbler, like that inner,
Sure, the barrier area.
Yeah, that area in between. And, this is one that I can actually do, which is the chestnut-sided warbler is please, please, pleased to meet you. That's their song. So they kind of greet you as you enter the forest.
And speaking of songs, this might be a little semantic, but when you're counting birds, do you count hearing it or do you have to see it?
He's seeing it or hearing it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so hearing it is just as good, but two of us have to see it or hear it for it to count.
Oh, so there are rules.
There are rules, yes. And again, it has to be done in a 24-hour period. So the folks that go out and camp out, they pick up some of the nighttime birds like woodcock and owls.
Sure.
And then we continue on during the day.
So you said there's kind of a different set of birds you're hearing at night versus during the day?
Yeah. I mean, some of these birds we wouldn't normally hear during the day, so we have to be out there at dusk or things like that in order to
birds like owls you mentioned.
Owls, yes. Yeah. That's another good one, yeah.
All right, and now let's move into the woods a little bit. What birds are you
seeing there?
So,
we do our Birdathon at the Audubon Center. That's where we spend most of our time. So we're standing on the porch, we're hearing all these birds that I just described, and then we walk into the woods, past the chestnut-sided warblers, and we start seeing birds that we might find there. And a good one for us is the mourning warbler. So we've done some forestry practices at the Audubon that creates habitat for species like this. So we were able to pick up, these are last year's birds. We were able to pick up a mourning warbler since we've created that habitat. And then a good one for us, which gets everybody excited, it's kind of like the flame bird, is the Blackburnian warbler. And this is an interesting one because we hear it, but it hangs out really high in the trees. And so we're always standing around trying to get a good look at it. And a lot of these birds are really tiny, so there's a couple of spots where we know these birds are, and it's a great time for all of our staff.
So is that one more heard than seen? More often?
Last year, we usually end up seeing it because it's such a striking bird. We work hard to see it. Another one that we would hear going into the forest at the Audubon is the veery, one of our thrushes. Veer, 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 veer. And that's how it gets its name. So this is another bird we commonly pick up when we're, birding at the Audubon.
And part of your job, of course, is bird banding. Are any of these familiar to you from that?
Yes, so just a couple weeks ago, I caught a mourning warbler at the center. We catch veeries all the time. We catch phoebes, song sparrows, all species that are regularly around there. And, when we band, run into our nets and we put bands on them.
Great.
Yeah,
Now let's
yeah.
move from the woods to maybe some wetter areas.
Yeah, so last year, we as we travel, once we band, bird the center, we'll start to move a little bit. But if you go to a wetland this time of year, you're going to hear a red-winged blackbird. Gorgeous red epaulets on the thing. This is a nice male. Again, another one that once you get to a wet area, you're going to see. Another good one that we might come across is the yellow warbler. This is a species that maybe not a wetland or a pond, but they like wet, marshy areas. And so that's just a striking all yellow bird. It's the only all yellow bird that you're going to see out there. So, and they go, sweet, 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 you're so sweet. So we get a little present. This time of year, birds are singing. They're going to town. So, using our ears and our eyes, and occasionally Merlin, the app on your phone, we can identify these species.
All right. How about any special ones that you get to see?
So, once we get into, as we're walking along the roads or something like that, we might come across our resident broad-winged hawk. They've been nesting at the Audubon for years, and we don't always see them, but the broad-winged hawk with those strong tail, white stripes on the tail feathers is a woodland hawk. So we were lucky last year to get one of those, and we're hoping to get one of those again this year.
Okay.
What else do we see when we're out there? Oh, so when we get to one of the other good birds that we saw last year, we stopped at a little pond and we saw a pied-billed grebe. Now, in our normal travels, we don't really see this small water bird. It gets its name from the black stripe on its bill. And so this was a good one for us. You pull up, we were at the side of the road, all of a sudden there's a pied-billed grebe. And then we got lucky because 5 feet away from the grebe was a green heron.
Wow.
So the green heron is a small heron that we often see, a little more secretive than, say, the great blue heron, which often stands right out there. So we were lucky last year to get a green heron. We don't get them every birdathon, so there's some highlights that come out.
And that pie-billed grebe, it looked a lot like a duck. Is it?
Yes.
Is it a different?
Well, no, it's different. It's a grebe, and grebes are different from waterfowl. They behave the same way. The grebes will often dive for their food, so they pop up, go down on the water, pop up, that kind of thing, just like some ducks. But it's a little bit different than our waterfowl. Yes.
All right, and you brought a photo of one very special bird you saw last year.
Yeah, and we really try for this. We drive to a place called Birdathon Park in Heinsberg just for this particular bird. And that is a favorite of mine because it's one of the ones that I do a lot of work with, is the golden-winged warbler. This is a species that's declining across its range. We work with landowners to do a lot of management for this species. Birdathon Park, we help the town manage that with funding from like U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So you can go there and pick up the golden-winged warbler, which goes biz, buzz, buzz.
You came with a lot of bird sounds today.
Those are notice how I skipped over the Blackburnian warbler because I can't do that one.
We won't ask you, that's okay. And how many of these are migratory?
So a lot of them that we showed are migratory. Some of them show up earlier, like we talked last time, song sparrow, phoebe, they're early in. But a lot of the birds, like the golden-winged warbler, Blackburnian warbler, they're just now coming to Vermont. Middle of May, they start showing up. And so we time our birdathon to get these birds that might be nesting here, but some birds that might also be passing through that we may only see briefly, during a 2-week span, and then they're gone further north. So most of the birds are migratory in nature.
So is that why you choose to have the birdathon this time of year?
Yeah. So May is when we're going to see, we have the best chance of seeing most, a high number of species.
And do you have any birds on your bucket list that you want to see this year?
You know, it's funny because when you go out there, especially because it's migration season, you're hoping to see a whole bunch of different warblers. So one good one to see this year, if we had, which we don't see every year, is the magnolia warbler. And I don't have a picture of the magnolia warbler, but that would be a good one. Some of the woodland hawks, Cooper's hawk, sharp-shinned hawk. You know, they're ones that just we're walking along and they fly over your head and you go, oh, Cooper's hawk, check, you count it and put it on the list.
Nice.
So it's really fun because we know what we're normally going to get, and then there's always this surprises throughout the day.
Great. And we talked a little bit beforehand. I didn't know quite when baby bird season was, so to speak, but you've said there are some starting this time of year?
So yeah, so you know, eagles and owls probably have young at this point in time. Some of the early nesters, like eastern bluebirds, may have young birds, but the bulk of the breeding happens the end of May and through June. That's when we'll see most of the young birds start showing up. And then into July as they fledge and start moving around. So we're not quite to the breeding season yet, but some birds, even the common tern, we were out there on the islands, last week, and we had 42 nests there.
Wow.
So no babies until June, but they're starting to nest.
Yeah, it sounds like you're expecting a lot then.
We're hoping for a lot, yes.
And of course, I know it's a little early still, but what's some baby bird etiquette if I see one on the ground I should?
So, with baby birds, if they're on the ground, you see a robin, young robin on the ground or something like that, just leave it on the ground. The parents know where they are, and so, trying to raise a baby bird, first off, it's illegal if it's a migratory bird because you're not allowed to do that. If you are really concerned, there's, a bird on the ground, there's lots of cats around or something like that, you can call a rehabilitation person that might be able to come and get it. But for the most part, they're just going to recommend the same thing. If that bird is on the ground, the adults are probably around feeding it still. You just don't know they're there.
So more likely than not, just leave it be.
Just leave it be.
All right, Mark, thank you so much for joining us today.
Okay, my pleasure.
And if you have a bird-related question, you can pass it along to Mark at the address on your screen, or you can drop Mark an email. His address is mlabarr@audubon.org. Send Mark your questions and pictures, and he'll try and find an answer for you, or you can even be featured on an upcoming edition of Bird Notes. Thank you once again to everyone behind the scenes here at WCAX for making this program possible. You're watching Across the Fence. I'm Julie Whitney. Have a good one.